Okay, and welcome to my very first tutorial. Excuse the background noise. I am in London and it is extremely hot, so I have to have my window open. But in this tutorial, essentially, we're going to be creating this watch here. It is quite a simple design, but it's mainly for beginners, but it does have a few parts in there which are good for intermediate learners as well. And I'll be going through all of these parts theoretically and structured, so no one will be left behind in the video and it won't be anything too taxing. So basically we're going to create all of the design you can see here in this watch. Just get this out of the way. All of the design you can see in this watch, all the details here and everything. We're going to create these hands and the Roman numeral letters as well. In this video we're not going to be creating the textures. That will be a video for a later date. So without further ado, let's start. So just going to delete this and get rid of these. Now, so what we want is to first of all get our reference images. I just went onto Google and I sourced this one image of a watch's dimension. I simply just typed in watch dimensions on Google and it came up with this image. Now, as you can see, I'm using the right, front and top. So in this one we actually want the back, so we can work on the front and the back of the image at the same time. But as you can see here, each image is slightly different in the aspect of being centered. So this one is centered to 0 at the back, this one is centered to 0 at the front and the side, etc. And what you want to do is, after you've imported your image, after you found your images, you go to Alt V, click, and then you click this little button here, and it will just take you to your image. You find it in here, and then you just move the offset in the X and Y, and you can change the size in the X and Y as well. But these two are locked in, so if you move up, they move up together. So there you are, as you can see. So after you've done that, let's begin. So I'm going to start with a cylinder, just a basic shape, but what we're going to do is we're going to bring it to the front and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees so it fits nicely into this shape here. And if you press E on the keyboard, you can go into the navigation settings to move it left and right, but as I've already got the watch centered to 0, we don't need to do anything about that. Now, you can see these orange bars in the perspective value. These are used to control the cylinder size, but they're only usable when the object is not editable. So in the meantime, we're just going to scale up, so match these lines. Then we're going to the side view and scale it down to fit inside of this box here. As you can see, I'm going into these lines here because we've got work and modelling work to do, and we haven't got that far yet. So now we've got our basic watch shape. We need to do one more thing before we make it editable, and that is bump it up to 52 segments. This just allows a smoother shape, and it gives us a bit more quality control when we come to final rendering, and it just makes it easier along the way to have a nice rounded cylinder. So what we're going to do is straight away this object in the top left up here, or this icon here, to make it editable, and then you can jump down to the face. So, and you can press enter to scroll through these three. So that's points, lines and faces. So we're going to be in the faces for the moment, and what we're going to do is we're going to press U and then L on the keyboard. This allows us to select rings of the object. So as you can see, we don't want this side here selected because it's put this orange line here. This is the back of the watch. We're going to be working on the front for the moment. So now we've got our front selected, we're going to jump into our perspective view and we're going to press M and then W. This is going to extrude inner, or you could right click and you could find it in the menu here, and there's short hotkeys for each one. So we just press Ctrl Z and we're going to do that again, M and W. And now what we're going to do is we're going to scale and we're going to scale in the front view so it doesn't sink into the actual watch, as you can see. And we're just going to get it to fit inside of this second ring. Right, now we're going to go back and press E. This gives us our navigation again, and we're just going to scale it up. And as you can see here, we've got a nice fit onto this watch. There we go, nice fit here. Now, so now we've got that, we're going to extrude we're going to extrude in on this face here to allow for the bump, or for the watch faces to sit inside. So we're going to press M and then T on the keyboard. Just do a quick drag, because we don't want to do it too much. So now we've got control over it inside of here. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring it back, I would say, to about here, about halfway. And you can look in your other perspective views. In this one we're going to be looking at the right, which is just under perspective. So we're just going to pull it to about there. That looks about right. Okay, so I've sourced this image here. It's just a classic looking watch, and it's got nice designs on the front of it. But as you can see, there's these rings here. So we've got the one indent, two indent, and then a third indent here. As you can see, there's a little drop down. And this is what essentially we're going to be creating now inside of the watch. So let's jump back in. Now, let's bring this back out a bit. And what we haven't done is quite an important bit. So we're going to go into the points, do right click and optimize. This just allows all of the points to connect to each other after extruding. That is a serious thing to do. Every time you make an extrude or you change parts of the mesh using the extrudes and deleting parts, you always want to optimize it. Just deletes the excess information. So now we've got this part here. As you can see, we've got this little bump. So now we're going to do a T, which jumps into the scale. So we're just going to create this nice kind of smoothed edge upon it. You can't really see it so well in this view here, but it's a different watch. So we're just going to do this to how we want the designs. So we're going to bring this back out a little bit, get a nice little indent there, not too much. And now what we're going to do is MT, extrude again, pull that in, and just scale that one down a bit. Not much, but we just want it to, oh, too much. Not much, but we just want it to flow and have a nice little bump. And now we're going to do it one last time. There we go. And this will be, so the glass, when we create the glass, that will sit on there. So what we're going to do is press U, L, select this ring here, and just do one more extrude in, and there we have it. That's our watch face shape there. So now the glass is going to sit in this little ring we've just made, and all of the faces are going to be in here. Actually, I'll tell you what, we're just going to extrude this one more time back just to give us space to work with. Right, there we go. So I've made 5 extrudes and a final space. Now we're going to create the centre part for the watch to sit on, or the hands to sit on. So we go to UL again, select them all, MW, and scale in a new ring. Now we're going to go into the front. Just going to bring that in, and to me it matches up quite nicely because I've spent the time to get the shapes into place, or get the image into place for the shapes. Now we can do another extrude. I'm just going to pull out this centre part here, but we're not going to pull it out too far because we need to remember the glass needs to go onto the watch face, and we don't want it to stick into it. So I'd say about here. Now this, here we go, as you can see, we've now got this part here, and what we're going to do is add a nice little bit of design to it. So we're going to go M and then S on the keyboard. This brings up the bevel. So we're just going to create this little shape here, bring that in a bit, and then M, T. Bring that in, and then M, B one more time. Oh, sorry, M, W, M, T, extrude, and then M, B finally. Oh, sorry, M, S, sorry, not M, B. And now this gives us like a nice little shape. This will look good if you're doing close-up work, maybe an animation of the watch or a bit of product design, for example. This is always like a nice touch to have these finished edges. As you can see here, it gives it. It's not a big detail, but when you look at it, you can see it's there. I quite like adding in stuff like that. Right, so now we're going to create the faces for the watch. Okay, so looking at the faces that we have here, the time points, it looks like a rectangle cube with a bevel on the top of it, just to give it like an extra indent. As you can see here, it's cube and then it's got an indent just on top of it. So we're going to be creating something like that for 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10 and 11. And then we're going to do the Roman numerals for 12, 3, 6 and 9. Just because it looks more stylish to be honest, but that's my personal opinion of it anyway. So we're going to jump back in here, and we are going to be looking in the front view for the moment. So let's bring in a cube, just a normal cube, and where is it? So we jump into the model mode. This allows us to have the whole thing selected. I'm just going to scale that down just to fit there, so it gives us like a basic shape. Scale it down again, and that could be a bit too long because we're modelling it to this size here, but we're just keeping it in this part of the moment. I'd say about maybe a tiny bit more. I'd say about like that, but it's up to you, whichever reference images you're using. And this would not be a conventional watch. This probably wouldn't work with the hands. So we're just going to scale it down in here as well. Go into our side view, and this line here is where we're going to be placing the watch face. So we're going to bring it in just so it's touching right in there. There we go, because it has to be touching and it can't be overlapping too much as well, because when we start to play with the red settings, such as like ambient occlusion and global illumination, the shadow effects, the shadows can have an effect, so you don't want it overstepping the line or understepping. You want it to be just about right. To me, okay, that's about right. It's just sitting on there. So we're going to shrink it down so it's nice and thin. And now we are going to make it editable. Straight away, just select the first face, and we're just going to give it a bevel. Maybe to about like that, and then M, and then W to extrude inner, give it another shape, and then M, and then T, just to finish that off. And this is going to be our standard watch face. Right, so now we've got this shape. We're going to take it and we're going to size it to here, or rotate it onto here. So I'm holding shift to stay in the 10 digits. As you can see, I'm going, you won't be able to see it in this one actually. So rotating, you've got these numbers that come up. If you hold shift, it goes 10, 20, it jumps up in digits, and you can change that in the settings as well, to how many digits you want it to jump up by, either 5 or 20. See, I've made this a bit too long, but I'm going to keep it this length anyway because I want it to be more noticeable. Right, so what we're going to do now is press W on the keyboard, and that sets the controls to the world axis. No, it takes the world axis off, so it sets it to the object's orientation. Then we're going to hold Control and drag this object down, just to match this one here. We're going to zoom in. Yeah, just make sure it's the same distance away roughly. Doesn't matter too much. And what we're going to do is we're going to select both of them, and let's see how centered this is. So it's centered, but it's not as centered as we need it to be. So we're going to press W again, and we're going to press Enable Access, and we're going to set this to 0. And you'll see why we're setting it to 0 in a second, because it's quite an important step, really. to make this whole process a bit easier. So now we're just going to deselect that. You can also press L on the keyboard, and that does it for you, you see. So now we've got both selected, we're going to go into the rotation. And remember we're doing the faces for 2, 4, 5, 8, 10 and 11. So we're just going to hold Control and rotate, and then we're going to hold Shift as well at the same time, just by 30 degrees, and that will hit us exactly onto the 2 and the 8. So this is why we centered it, because when you're rotating you want them to rotate from this point, and we're going to keep it in the exact circle, and 30 degrees on the watch is exactly what we need to jump from each one, but we're going to go to 60 for the next one, because it's a cylinder, isn't it, so each degree is, and there's 12, so it'll be 30 degrees for each point. So we're going to rotate one more time. Ooh, there we go. So now we have our faces. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go through and name them. So I'm going to do this by the the classic clock, because it's a watch, so it's going to be 1, what's this one, 7, 8, 2, 4, 10, 11, and finally 5. And then we're just going to get them all into order, because it just makes life easier to have everything in the right place. 4. Okay, so now we're going to create the Roman numeral numbers. 4, 12, 6, 3 and 9. So what we're going to do is we are going to go up here into the pen tool and select text. Quite large, so for 12 it is, let me try and remember, it's XII, so we're just going to do XII, press enter, I'll not press enter, click out of it, and we have our writing there. And you can just go into here and you can play about with the fonts, a bit like bold, italic, regular, etc. I'm just going to click align to middle, because that makes my job a bit easier. And I'm going to shrink it down a bit in the height here, bring it forward. Let's say 50 centimeters. Still a bit too big. Let's do 45. No, it's too large. So we're just going to do 35 maybe. That looks about right to me. So that's sitting there. So that seems about right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put one in each, just so we know that they're all in line, and I'm going to move it over by 70. Yeah, by 70. And we can get in here and we can just delete the extra points. Do the exact same thing over here. Move it in by 70. Just so we know that everything's... Oh, so we want minus 70 for that one. Just so we know that everything's in the right position. And we're going to go up by 70 as well. Or will we? No, I guess we can't. So we're going to go up onto these ones by, let's find the best part for these ones. So we're going to go into the front view. It's very hard to see, but it looks like 67 is the best for this one. So we're just going to bring it down to 67, just to keep all the numbers quite round. And then we're going to go back to the middle one. I'm just going to drop that down to minus 67. Oh, no, minus... Interesting. Minus 9. Minus 89. Oh, 90, sorry, minus 90. That looks about right to me. So now we have all of these faces. They all say 12, so we're just going to go through rename them. So this one is obviously, no, this one is 6, so this one is going to be 3, 9, and then 12. Now we're going to go and reshape them. So 6 is VI, yeah, VI, and then 3 is just 3 eyes, and then 9 is actually let's rotate these. It might be nicer. Oh, we can do that afterwards. 9 is IX. Okay, so I made a mistake with the text. What we're going to do is we're going to bring them back to 0, each one at a time. And what we're going to do is do an extrude on each one. Boom, extrude. So now we have our shape. Bring it out, and look, it's very deep for a shape. So we don't want to. So we want to select the extrude as a whole, and then bring it out. Because if you bring away the text, it moves it, but it doesn't move the extrude. And you can see they're both centered differently. So what we're going to do is bring Gizmo to the end here. That's going to make it easier for us. We're going to go in the side view to do that. Close. There we are. Just get it nice and in line here so you can zoom right in. Just get the job done. Perfect. And then we're going to press L again, and we're going to scale. Just going to scale. Ah, yes. So it's the non-editor object here. So we're just going to make this editable. And we have the screw. And what we're going to do is just connect and delete all of these. Now we can drag this. So now we have the first shape. So we're going to drop it down by 90. That's 90. And it should sit nicely into where we want it. And remember, we're going to go into the side view. We're going to go into the side view, and we're going to. Oh, mouse is playing up. There we go. Go into the side view and just get it to touch onto these lines here. Just there we go. And now what we are going to do is we're going to go and select the faces, the V and the I, and we're going to do the exact same thing of what we did to these faces. So we're going to go M, S, and bevel it. And we're going to go M, T, and extrude it in. Now that leaves us with this nice little face. There's a little curvature here. I'm not going to go into fixing the typology of this at the moment. We can cover that later on in the video. Or because we're not going to need it for animating, and it's not going to affect the way it's rendered so much. But I like this little curve that it gives it. So I'm going to go into the typology side of it yet. Now we're going to get the 3, bring that back to 0. Do the exact same thing. Extrude. So we're going to name this 6. Extrude, and just put the 3 in the extrude, and then we have the shape again. Just go through this process all one by one. I'm going to cut the video and I'm going to come back once I've finished this. Okay, so now I have extruded all and created the number shapes, but I've realised I've made 2 mistakes. The first is that we didn't optimise. So we go optimise. I'll show you what happens if you don't optimise. So you get the faces. Oh, because I didn't extrude there. it just pulls the faces away and just doesn't attach the face to the model. As you can see, look, because I extruded here, look, there's just a gap now. So after I optimise, you might have seen a change happen there. And there you go, look, now it's fully attached. So it's very important to optimise when you are going around and doing this stuff. That's my mistake for not being consistent with it. Let's just see if it worked. Yes, it did. So now we have one last one to do. So this has to be when you're in the points as well. If you do it in any of the other ones, it doesn't work, so you have to go into the points and do it. Now, the other mistake I made was with the 3 and the 9, and we had the values for both of them at the bottom, and then we just drew them on. So this off-centered them a little bit, so the bottom of them are now in line with the centre, where we want the middle in line with the centre. So what we're going to do is just going to drag them down to about there. As you can see, I'm doing this by the X. So I'm going to drag this line of the X here onto this line here, because I've lined up my watch perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on the right hand view. Oh sorry, I'm going to zoom this one, and I'm going to move it in the perspective. So yeah, look. But we'll settle with that. So now we have all of our faces in the right place. We are now going to create the hands for the watch. Actually, what we're going to do now is get them all in line. So we put 3 in there, 6 in there, 9, 12, and we're going to just select them all and do Alt G. That puts them into a group. So let's call this faces. Faces, or you can call it anything you like. So now we have our watch, so we're going to call this the face, or the body. We're going to call this the body. So body, and then we have our faces. Now let's create the hands. This is more fun for myself. So we're going to go into the front view. I'm only going to create the hour and the minute hands. You're more than welcome to create the second hand as well if you want to. But for my watch, I'm not going to use that. So we're just going to create another cube. As we did before, scale it down. And we're going to scale it down to fit this, the centre circle. Actually, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to get a tube, press R, rotate it, shift till we get to 90 degrees, and we're going to shrink this one down with the controls with the orange dot. And what we're going to do is we're going to shrink it to the size of the sphere. Oh, not the sphere, the handle, whatever you want to call it, the middle part. And then we're just going to drag, it's covered the whole watch, and then we're just going to drag it in as well. So get that out of the way. So you can only drag in the perspective view. So let's zoom in. We're going to drag it down, say to about there. And we've got this nice tube shape, and then we're just going to do the exact same thing, bring it out. Oh. So we're just going to bring it forward, scale it down in this one, until we've got a nice little ring. And we're going to have a look, because we need to fit 2 of these on here. So this is still too wide. So maybe about like that. And we're going to bring it right down to the bottom. And we're going to leave a little gap, so it's not overlapping. There we go. I'm just going to go back in there to see how close that is. We can get that a bit smaller actually. So we're going to go in, bring it onto the edge there. There we go, that's nice and in the right place. And as you remember, we want 52. For this project, having higher segments, sorry, that's my phone. For this project, having higher segments or rotational segments isn't an issue. because the project isn't that large and there's not so much going on. But if you had a very big scene and you were to create like a lot of high detailed models, you would want to figure out ways to keep your quality the same but have less faces, just because there's less information in your final render, and it just helps keep the machine sped up. But for this example, it's not going to make a difference. So now what we're going to do is make this editable. Go into the faces, and you can see we can select each individual face. So this part is very easy. What we're going to do is we're going to do the width of each hand. So from there, and we can press space. So press space on the keyboard, and that opens multi-select. If you hold down shift, you can just go around and select them all. You don't have to hold shift, but if you want to select them consecutively at different times, you just hold down shift, and then you can rotate, etc., move them about. So I'm just going to go from here to there. How many is that? 2, 4, 6, 8. Perfect. And now we've selected the front. This was literally just for a reference, and then we're going to go around, select these ones, and then hold down Control and drag over to deselect. So now we have the faces selected that we want to use. And I'm just going to go MT for extrude. I'm just going to drag it. This is going to be the minute hand, so it's going to be a little bit longer, but it's not going to overlap the object. I'm just going to actually, yeah, let's bring it to the same size as this, and then we'll bring the whole object up so it doesn't overlap. We go back here, and you would be able to see if we were to rotate it. So this is the good part about having the rotation on 0 as well. You can just animate this straight away. But as you can see, it's just cutting through the objects we made. So we're just going to bring it out a little bit, just enough for it to slide by without clipping our faces. So what we can do to make this job a bit easier, we go to ground shading, and that brings up the lines. We'll be able to see if they're intersecting or not. I think, yeah, that we're okay, just about. So let's change the rotation to 0. Ooh. So we'll start there. So now what we're going to do is go back to the faces, press space, just click, select all of, make sure we have all of the top ones selected, and we're going to add our little designs to it again. So MS, sorry, we're going to bevel. And then we're going to go to MT and just bring it in a slightly. So we have this indent here, and this is for our watch face. And now we need to optimize it. Okay, and now we're going to call this min, and go to objects, duplicate it, and now we're going to rotate it to whatever time we want, and we're just going to bring it up a bit so it sits just above it. And now we're going to go into our faces, and we are going to press space, select all of these ones, all of these ones, deselect these, and we're simply just going to drag it down. There we are, we're going to drag that up. Yes, we're going to drag up, that would be better for it. So there we are. And what we can do is we can flatten this edge off. I mean, personally, I quite like having this curvature here. But if you choose to, you can flatten it off. So what I did was then just press T, pulled this in, and held down Shift at the same time. Bear in mind, if you're doing this, you're going to get these overlapping faces, so you'd have to go through, delete them individually, and then reconnect them with the less faces, and you don't want that. So, here we have our hands, and what we're going to do is quick just go in, optimize our hands, optimize. Okay, they're both done. Just group these together, Alt G, hands. Alright, perfect. Yeah, these look good. So now we're going to go to the back view. Yeah, sorry, the back view here. Did we change that? Yes, we did. Perfect. So, as you can see, it might be a bit confusing. So what we're going to do is, we're just going to get everything, rotate it. That won't do anything actually. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on the back. As you can see, it already is the back. So we're going to work from this side here. U and L. This highlights all the rings, and then M, W. That extrudes inner. So we're going to take it. Not very far actually, just to this centre ring here. So we're just going to, I'm not centering this outer ring here, and you can see by this ring anyway. Where are we? Yeah, so we haven't moved anywhere. So we want to bring it to here as well, and we're going to create this indent. But I think that it wants to be brought down a little bit as well. Because I don't like how much it's sticking out. It's the back of the watch. It doesn't want to be too sharp. We want to create nice flat smooth edges for the back. Okay. Bring it in, but we also want to bring it down. So just about, maybe just like that. Now we're going to go extrude inner again. Oh, MW. Go in, and this isn't on my image. This is just my own wanting. Just to have this little edge here. Now one last time, I'm going to go extrude inner. Oh, sorry, two more times. I'm going to go to this point here. This center ring here. Pull this out just to about there, about halfway. About halfway we're going to pull this one. And we're going to go MT. No, we're going to go MW again. Extrude inner to this point. As you can see, this is our last one. And we're going to pull this one out right to the end. Now we've got this nice smooth shape with a little bit of an edge to it. Now we're going to extrude inner. So we're just going to do a normal extrude on this. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a ring around the inside of this edge and do KL. What this does, and then hold shift to go to 50%. What this does is just creates another face. We go back to UL, select this face here, and this face, and then just do select this face, and just do MS for bevel. Now we have this nice sort of like extrude on the back of the watch. Gives it a nice finishing shape to it. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to do KL again about here, UL, and what we're going to do is we're just going to bring this one down a little bit. Bring it down a little bit. And that's going to create this nice edge here. So it's looking quite it's looking quite good at the moment. We've got this flat edge here for our details. If you want, you can put your name on it. maybe a logo or something, or just an image, just a design. You could go for something quite aesthetic you could put there, so maybe you could go for like the 1800s style writing and be like made in, or put a hallmark on it or something. Now what we're going to do is to create the holders for the straps. This part is quite simple. You see KL, make a line, and we're going to get that. We can get that in line with our piece. So we go up here, click there, done. Now, one more thing before we extrude it, we're going to go UL, and we're going to just bevel this edge here. So, are we going to do that? We can do, I'm not going to do that, but if you want to do it, you can. Now we're going to do the same process that we did by making the middle, which is select all of these ones here. Just going around, and as you can see, because we did 52 rotational segments, it fits quite nicely in there, just by the way the watch is done, and it's done by 360, so we just get one face for each, which is quite nice. So we select that one, deselect it, that one, deselect, that one, deselect, and so on. Now we're just going to extrude, so MT. We've got this shape here, and we're going to go to the front view and scale, just until we get to what looks about right. We can always just edit that, so up one more bit actually, yeah, we can always just edit that. And now this part's a little bit longer, it just goes through individually, press W to put on the world view, and then just take each face in. Each face in. Actually, I'll explain this one, so if you want to skip ahead after I've explained it, you can. So now I'm going to go to the points, and I'm going to select the rectangle selection, because it's better for this tutorial, or better for this specific bit. We're just going to level that out. We're not going to worry about this edge here, because we don't want to hurt the shape of the watch. So now we're going to go into the side, bring that down, bring that out. So we've just created that shape, and you're just going to need to go through all of them and just bring them into line nicely. And what you can do is with this one, this has just selected all of the images, or sorry, all of the points in this axis. Just makes it a little bit easier to get them in the right positions. So bring that in, bring that in. You can go in really closely and do it, but it doesn't make a great deal of difference because these parts here aren't always on show. Not the most exciting parts of the watch. So now we have this. What we can do is smooth off these edges a bit by doing KL, and we'll create another loop there. Go to T, we go to the edges. If you double click, go to the loop we just made. Just give that a bit of weight. We won't worry too much about how sharp it is because it's not a massive detail. Okay, so now we've got them all in shape. We are going to create the time turner. So we're going to go into our front view again, and it is right here. So what we're going to do is going to pick up the reference, I'm not going to make it like that because I don't have the time to make all of these little bumps and stuff and faces, and I don't really like that design anyway. It's not really what I want. Sorry about that. Well, it's not really what I want with my models, with my model for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in there, create a cylinder, rotate it 90 degrees, get it in line, and then we're just going to go through the process again of scaling. Nice and small. I'm not going to use this flat edge here as an example. Maybe I will see what it looks like, and bring that nice and down. So now we've got it to an alright shape. I'm just going to bring it down a little bit more, pull it out a bit, and we're going to change it to, keep it at 36 this time. So make it editable, go to the faces and just select every other face going around. This will create, not yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to optimize, UL on the keyboard, and select the faces of the end of the cylinder, and we're going to do an extrude. So MT, bring it out a little bit, UL again, hold down shift, and then you've got both faces. Now NT, that just brings this up nicely. We just want to do the one at the moment, or maybe two, and then we're going to go into our points and bring that in. Bring that in so it's flat. As you can see, the shape I'm making here is like a little turnip. And now we're going to go back into our faces, UL, select all the ones we just made, and bring them in, bring them down. So we've got a nice gap, a little gap, but not too much. And now we're going to go through and select each one individually. Every other face. This is just going to create finger notches, so when you turn the watch you'll be able to feel the notches for the fingers. And we're just going to bevel these to create. That's quite a nice shape. It's got a nice edge to it. So we're going to UL, MW, bring that in, UL again, MS for beveling. There could be a little bit more actually, so UL, MD, and we're just going to keep this consistency of these finished shapes because they do look much nicer when they've got details added onto them. I'm just going to do one more. Okay, so before my speaker cut out, I was showing this last part here. So what I did was just extruded inner. Oh, sorry, I didn't extrude and just brought this bit in a little bit. That creates like a nice finished edge on it. It will look good when it has a texture on it because it will really show up. And if you have good shadows on it with a good light, like a 3-point light, you'll be able to, it will show up quite nicely. So now what we're going to do is go to the straps of the watch. And what we're going to do is go into our front view, press Alt V, and we go to here, and then you select these 3 dots, and we're just going to go down. I've got a couple of straps here. There's this one and this one. I'm going to be modelling from this one here because I just like the look of it a bit more. So I'm going to open it up, and yeah, there we go. So now we are just going to move it into position and move it in the y-axis, the offset, and we're just going to scale it a little, not much, maybe by 10 points, just to fit it into place. And we're going to work on this strap first, so let's get going. What we're going to do is create a cube. I'm going to bring that up, get it into position, and we're going to size it to fit the strap. As you can see, it's really too wide, so we're just going to shrink it down. Probably want it to be about, not very thick, about that thick, because just thick enough to fit inside of the brace, or whatever you want to call it. Now we're just going to go and make the cube editable. Go up into faces, select the top face, and then just drag it up to the end. Yeah, that's about right. And then you're going to select the points, press space. If you haven't already got it selected, go onto the rectangle selection. Bring this one in, hold down shift, select the other one, and then just scale them. Scale them in the x-axis, and that will, until it fits onto your image. Zoom in a bit. Yeah, just got to get it to the right shape. Just take a look at it in the perspective. That looks about right, because this strap is shorter than the other. It's not going to be too long. Now we're going to press K and then L on the keyboard and create a point just below these two straps and about in the middle, so about here. We'll press space again, select them both and scale them in. Do the same here, scale them in and it gives it a tapered sort of look. Now we're going to get this rounded shape to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the faces again, 1, 2, 3, and back, 2, 3, and we're just going to go MW, extrude it in a little bit, not too much. We just want to make this, we're going to make an indent here for where these leather pinches are going to go. So then we go UL and select the outside one, UL and select the inside one, and then we're just going to bevel inside, so MS and do it inside bevel. It's protruding a bit, so now we're just going to scale it in. So we've got a bit more, just going to scale it in behind, and now we've got this sort of curved shape on the top and this flat edge on the side. So now look, we've got this curved edge and then the indent. Now we're going to work on the flat edges. So you go UL and select the outer ring, just press T and scale that down. Yep, scale that down. And that looks about right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get a subdivision and drop it in there, and it instantly just gets rid of it. And we're just going to add in a, we're going to do this later, get rid of the subdivision. So this is our time turner. This is our strap 1. So press E on the keyboard. Right, so now we're going to create this indent space here for the buckle to sit in. So what we're going to do is press KL. We're going to make a selection in the middle. We'll make one point in from the right, and then 1 point in from the left. And now we're going to go down, and we're going to look on here. How far down is that? So we'll create one there, and then we're just going to go through and delete all of these ones which we don't need. So we're going to press space go to live selection, select these ones, make sure you don't have any others selected, and just delete them. Now this is where the optimization part, so you see these points here, this is what's left behind when you delete stuff. So we go to optimize and they've gone. Right, so now we need to close this hole back up again, so we're going to press M and then B. This is a bridge. You can also find it by right clicking and scrolling down to bridge. And you have to be in the lines value, otherwise it doesn't work. And what you do is you just click on one line and then drag it to the next. And because we've just done simple typology, you can just drag it without any issues. So we're left with this gap here, but I'll show you how to fix that in a moment. So we pull over, I'm just going to go around all the edges. Right, now to fix this gap, we're just going to go to KL, which is a loop cut. And because it's not connected to the watch properly yet, we can just go into, what we're going to do is we're going to change this one to the top view. Top. Here we are. Might be easier to do it in perspective. So we're going to go in and we're just going to connect these two parts here. So now we've got two lines, they look roughly in the right place. Then we're going to go to our points and just slide these up, bring them in a bit, down, just so there's a little bit of a gap but not too much. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select both of these points, press M and then Q. This is how you connect the points together. And once you've got both selected and they've got that little white line in, just do left click and now they're connected together. Sometimes you just have to move them along to get into the right position. Select both of them again, M and Q, and left click. Now that's that side. Let me just go back to this side, exact same process. Just put it in a bit. Make sure it's nice and close because it jumps to the middle ground. So when you press MQ, it's going to jump to the space between. So you don't want it too far away because it will start to distort your shape. So we're going to pull that in. M and Q, and there we go. We've created that shape here now for the buckle to sit in. It looks a little bit too wide, so we can just go select these two and these two, just scale them in, and that looks about right. And now we have this nip or whatever, this space for the buckle to sit in. And now we've got to think about it. So there's going to be a bar that travels through. So we'll do it down at the bottom. There's a bar that's going to travel through this strap. So what we're going to do is we need to create a hole inside of here. So we're going to find out where we want it. We want it probably about here. So just go KL again. And we're going to cut there and there. And luckily we have a square which is already there for us. So we go into our, first of all we've got to optimize. So we go into our square, delete these two just by pressing delete on the keyboard, and now we're going to do the exact same thing. It's just a bridge these two holes, and what we're going to do is just get the body out of the way, and you can click these icons up here. So the top one is to bring it in and out of the view, and the bottom one is to tell it if you want it rendered or not. So if I was just to click here, my render settings, turn these off. As you can see, there's no face, and then I'll turn this off again. and there you go, it's back. So what we're going to do is just going to switch that off, go back to our strap, and now we've got a nice clear view of it. So we can go to bridge, join these up, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then we can put a bath through that. But what we're going to do first is create the leather kind of bulge which sits around it. You can't really see it from this image, but on a watch there's like an extension here where the leather's like folded over to fit. So we're just going to select these ones here. We're going to do it at the back as well. So what we're going to do is just create another loop, just so we've got a bit more space to work with. Then we're going to select all of these. And then we're just going to extrude. Extrude one more time. Yeah. And that's going to give us this nice shape. So what we're actually going to do is we're not going to extrude twice, we're just going to do the one, pull it out a bit further and place it into the subdivision, and now we get this sort of bulge shape, but you can see there's like a lot of pinching which is going on around the shape. This is to do with the actual subdivisions pulling in and smoothing everything out. We don't really want it to be that sort of, it kind of makes it look ugly. It makes the shape look ugly. I don't want that. So what we can do is just add another loop, and that smooths it down a bit. It gives it more of like a definition to work with. There we go. It's all right. It takes a bit of just a moment to get more of a smooth shape, but also not as pinched. I'm going to hide the body of the watch again. And we do this on both sides. I mean, that's not great, but it's also not bad, but no one's really going to be looking too much into this shape here, because it's going to be hidden anyway. There's just going to be a bar coming out either side. So what we can do is just add in another, there we go, that's much better already. So from a distance it looks okay, but this isn't it's not a very good example to make really when subdividing. Yeah, maybe there. Gives it a nice smoother finish. And for this side here, we're just gonna, you can press Q to jump in and out of the subdivision. I'm just going to pull this one out a bit. Maybe not that much. Yeah, so Q is to turn the subdivision on or off, depending. Okay, and then let's go and do the exact same thing at the top. So now we need to create a space to delete from, and we're going to have to do this twice. So how I'm jumping between my viewports is pressing the middle mouse button. That takes me, it just takes you, it's easier than going up into the corner here and pressing this button. You can hover your mouse over, press middle mouse button, and then you're there basically. Just delete those, and then join them back up again on the inside. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not right. Can be a bit fiddly. There we go. 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now we have those joined up. You see we've got these horrible sort of pinching lines again. We don't want these. So just going to go back into loop, create one there, create a loop in there. Just going to do it all the way around again. But it's not too much of an issue because they're not on display, but it helps to have a nicer finish, really. I'm just going to do one here just to smooth that out. And there, that is our first part of our strap, but we want to make this indent here a bit nicer because it's not looking that great in all fairness. So what we're going to do is UL, and we're going to delete the edges around here. Well, not delete, we're going to unselect these edges here. So we have an issue, so we're going to go back before we made those extra rings there, so don't want to do that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and optimize, and we're going to go back and recreate these. 1, 2, little one here, 3, 4. Okay, that should, and then we'll just create one there. If you hold shift you can be more accurate of where you put the mouth or put the line. Right, so now we're going to create a better indent for the leather parts. So as again, have these parts selected. It's gone all the way around, which is great. And we're just going to delete these these parts here. 2, 3, 4. And now we're just going to go in. Actually, no, we're going to keep these. So MT, we're just going to bring that in, not by much, just by a little, and we're going to see what that looks like. Yes, that's much nicer. Much nicer. But there's a lot of pinching that's going on here. So what we're going to do now is just add another one on each side here. Or we're just going to create one there, and one there. That's relieved it a bit. Okay, so now we are going to create the buckle which sits inside of the watch strap. So what we're going to do is simply just create a cube and slide it up, scale it down to fit the end of the buckle. That's quite nice. And then we're just going to bring it in to fit as well. Yep, seems about right. And then we're just going to scale it down and bring it into line with the rest of the watch. Maybe a bit less. Yes, that seems about right. So now we're just going to make it editable. Create 2 loops. So 3 loops, sorry, so 50%, 16.66, just so we know we're even here. I'm creating the 50% because when you make the loop, it then takes into calculation everything on the other side of the loop. So if I was just to make this one and then this one would be different to this one, if you get what I mean. So look, let's create the loop here, and then the next one is just slightly different, it's just not as big. And now we're just going to extrude, bring those down, about there. And we're going to get our bring those out a little bit, just so they're not overlapping. And then we can do the same with this part as well, just to keep it nice and straight. There we go. And now we're going to create this little indent that you can see here, which the arm sits inside of. We're going to create that now. KL, either side, double click to select the whole ring, and just slide that in. Right, so there we go, KL. There we go. Select these two spaces and just extrude. Pull it back a bit, and now we're just going to delete these two faces and these two. KL, create a loop, join the points back up again. Doing this just helps with the topology, it keeps everything nice and smooth, keeps your edge flows. It's better to always keep your points connected because you can end up with some pretty messy typology. Oh. There we go. And now we're going to optimize. And then just join this back up with that. So bridge. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. So press Q. So that is almost the buckle because we're just going to put it into a subdivision and get it smooth. But what we're going to do first is create, it depends what sort of watch style you like, but I like this style where these parts of the buckle bend. Oh, just want these two. Well, they bend a bit, and it looks a bit nicer to me. Bring up a subdivision, put it in there, and yeah, we're left with quite a nice shape, really, in all fairness. So we're just going to bring up the gizmo, put it inside there. I'm just going to make this edge here a bit sharper by coming into here, just creating a ring. So yeah, we've been left with this nice shape. Now we are going to create the bar which sits through the centre. So we're just going to get a cylinder, rotate it 90 degrees, bring it up, scale it down, have it so it touches but doesn't overlap too much. Because when we start putting on our textures and stuff's overlapping, it's not going to look great. So we just get it so it fits inside. Yep, that looks about right to me. Now we're going to create the arm. So same as we did before with the arms for the hand, sorry, for the watch. 90 degrees, bring it up, rotate it 90, scale it right down, just so it fits over this bar here. It's quite hard to see at the moment. Yeah, this side's better. So what we're going to do is, just going to hide this stuff here. It's just a trial and error to get everything into the right place. There we are. So just a little bit bigger. There we go, and then we can bring this down. Oops. There we have it. So we're going to make it editable and bring up the faces for the arm. So we're just going to go into the top view and then just select these top ones here, pressing space. And that one as well. No, not that one, not that one. So now MT, which is extrude, and then just drag it along. So I'm going to drag it into that pocket. I'm just going to bring it forward so it's not overlapping. Up a tiny bit more. Yeah, bring it forward again. Excellent. And now we're going to do the same thing that we did with the buckle. Is just make a line in there. And pull that forward. And what we're going to do is just going to hold, we're going to scale it down and hold shift, and that just creates this line to be flat, so it's nicer to work with. And we can move this up and down to determine where our curve will be. I want my curve to be similar in line with the buckle, and then we're just going to put it inside of a subdivision as well. Now we're going to do KL, hit that spot there, and there we have it. That is our arm bar. Call this one the buckle. I'm just call this strap 1 again. And then this here, we're going to reuse this, so we're just going to call this, I don't know, bar 1. And what we're going to do is, we're just going to drag it down by holding control and dragging to duplicate it. And then we're just going to move it down into this space here. Pull it through. I don't want to overlap much. Scale it up slightly because we have a bigger hole we're working with. And there we have our first strap. Is almost complete. We've still got to create these parts here. This is fairly simple, so we're just going to create another tube, rotate it, no, keep it how it is, pull this part out, slide her up, there we go. Dun dun. Just so we get the right size, we're going to scale it scaler M. This is the inner part of the tube, so we're just going to get that to touch in the same positions and then bring this part in. So maybe bring that one into about there, that one into about there. Now we're looking at this sort of shape. Get it lined up into the centre. Yeah, get it lined up into the centre of the strap. Make it editable and then just scale it down. And then we're going to press E, hold down Control, and just drag it to the next spot. And there we have those two straps. They should be a little bit lower, I think. There we have the straps. Oh, so I have actually made a mistake. I've done all of this backwards. So I need to rotate these around 180 degrees. And then just put them back into place, because the face of the watch here and the buckle. Okay, so now we're going to carry on where we left off, and we are going to be making the strap. So what I've done is I simply just dragged in a cube and scaled it up to fit the strap roughly, and now I'm just in the process of scaling it down on the right hand view just so it's the same as the other watch strap. So what we're going to do is drag it up to match where this other watch strap sits, and then we're just going to shrink it down so it's a similar width. We're going to copy the exact same process of the first watch strap, but this time we are just going to do it slightly differently because we have a bunch of holes to work with. So now this is like it is in the right length and the right position, so we're going to make it editable with the icon up in the top left. And now we have the faces and all of the other parts selectable. So we're going to select the bottom edge, and we're just going to drag that down to fit on, just so we encompass all of this. And now we're going to go to our points, go to the rectangle selection, and actually no, we're going to make a loop in the dead centre. Now we're going to go back to our rectangle selection and bring the points down, just to match this sort of arrow shape. Okay, and now we're going to create another point in the centre of that one, or sorry, another loop in the centre of that one, and another loop there. Press spacebar and just pull them out. We're going to do them both at the same time, just to get this consistency. And we've got our basic shape now. So now we can start editing and making it more smooth and adding in this different detail. So what we're going to do is we're going to look and see where all of these holes are. So how we're going to do this is we're going to make a cut just above and just below each one. Just above, just below. Just above, just below. As you can see here in the image, they're not all centered, but that's okay. Ours will be. Just, oh, getting ahead of myself there. It doesn't have to be entirely accurate, just you need to make sure that there's a loop above and below each one. Okay, now I'm just going to make a loop there and a loop there. So we roughly have our hole shapes. As you can see, we've got a lot more typology now than we had before, but this is okay. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go over and select each one which sits on the hole. we've done that, simply just delete them. Then go through and select the opposite faces for the holes. This can get a little difficult to see, so if you're finding it hard to see, just turn on ground shading, display, here, constant ground shading, and it might make it a little bit easier. And then just delete these. Now we are going to optimize, go to the lines, the edges, and press MB for bridge. And then we're just going to close these holes back up. And then each time what we're going to do is we're going to select this center line here and just drag it up to create this sort of hexagon shape. MB. It's not exactly. Oh, missed one. So this can be a bit tedious doing this sort of stuff, but it's all part of the process. It makes it much easier than doing a boolean, which isn't the best way of making holes because they are only really usable in this software, and it can cause problems further down the line. This is better because you have a cleaner poly or edge loops, etc. So it's just a lot easier to work. And it can be less time consuming doing it this way, and it's also a little bit more accurate as well. And we don't have to be exactly perfect or particular about where we are going to move each edge up and how far, because it's on the leather, and as you saw in the image, it wasn't exactly perfectly even anyway with the spacing of the with the spacing of the holes. So if our holes are slightly off, it might make it look more authentic in the end for the final product. Just a couple more, I believe. Two more. Bring that up. Jump back into our bridge. If you're missing the hotkeys, you can always press right click, and there is all of the tools, the most common tools which are there, and then their hotkeys are written on next to them. Or what you can do is, if you know the first character for your hotkey, you can press it, and then it will give you the menu for that. That'll be for the key M. This will be for key Q. I'm messing about here now. Yeah, so M is like the main key menu. MB. Select that one, and up we go. See how that is looking. It's looking quite nice. So now what we are going to do is we're going to go into our faces, and we're going to select all of the front and back faces. I'm not going to select any of the middle faces, but as you can see we've already got those selected, but we're going to go around and just deselect them. I'm doing this by holding control and left mouse and drag over all of the ones which I don't want. is to be about right, and then we're just going to hover over this one here, press Control and click on that so we don't have any of these highlighted, and then we're just going to press MW. That's going to extrude it inner. Now we've got this shape, and now we're just going to go UL and select this ring that we have just made. And what we're going to do is we are going to bevel this ring, so that is MS on the keyboard. Pull that out and now press T and scale it in. Now we'll take off the display into ground shading and we are left with this. So let's put this into a subdivision, see how it looks. That's looking okay, so now we just need to do a little bit more editing onto it and we should be on our way. So we can go into loop, we're going to add a loop here, and we are going to, no, we don't really need one there to be honest. So now we're going to work on the leather bulge, which we did on the previous one. So we're just going to find where the edge is, which is there. Actually, we're just going to drag the whole object up a little bit, just so it fits more nicely into the watch. Like as such. Now we are going to carry on editing around here. Q. Now, just go along and select all of these faces here. Leave this line. Select, and now we're simply just going to extrude. See how that looks. Not as well as we'd like, so what we're going to do is we're going to take these ones as well. Right. Extrude. Okay, that's a bit nicer. Yep. And now we're going to do exactly what we did with the last one, is to create the holes here. So what we're going to do is KL, just make another hole there, and cut through it. Get the same one on the other side, and what actually we're going to do is we're going to create one edge loop there, and one edge loop there, so we're not playing on the actual borders of the object, so we've got a bit more indent or a bit more space to work with. So delete that, hide the body of the watch again, which is there, MB, jump back into our edges, bring it back up. Very simple work, very simple. And now we're just going to press Q again, go back into our edge loop, and yeah, something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be hidden by the body of the watch anyway. Unhide the body. What we're going to do is go into Objects and select bar 1. The second bar we created, simply just duplicate it by holding Control and dragging down. And now that appears to be there. And now we're just going to go through and make these. So this one here is strap to bar. This one here is buckle bar. And this is strap 1 bar. Just going to group these together. And these two are the, what we're going to call these, not an aglet, that's for your hoodie, or shoelace, I don't know, tubes or straps, holders. It's going to be strap 2. You can select them all. Watch. And one last thing is we're going to rotate the 3 and the 9 because they will just look better rotated, in my personal opinion. Okay, so I'm just going to rotate the watch 90 degrees, as you can see here, drag it up a little bit in the front view, just so we've got this evenness. And if you remember, we're going to put the X on the centre of this line here. Just going to pull it out a little bit, maybe a tiny bit more, and then we're going to do the exact same for the 3, is to rotate it around 90 degrees. And this is easier because we can just put the middle one exactly sitting on that line, and then we're just going to bring it back in a little bit. Let's have it sitting on, just sitting there. That's quite nice actually, that fits. So we're just going to bring the X back in a slight part, and there we have it. We have created a watch. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial, excuse the pun. If there's anything that you would like me to change or edit about the tutorials, or if there's any requests that anybody would like to make about further tutorials, then please drop a comment in the comment section below. And if you have liked it, drop me a like and explain, I don't know, just let me know if there's anything that I can improve about these. It is my first tutorial, and also the tutorial will be coming for the materials, because we're only going to be using materials and 2 textures. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming in a couple of days. Thank you very much for watching.